Recording. Okay, now I'll just repeat it everything. So in CSS, again, this is a locator in Selenium, right? And it is little simple than XPath, right? And nowadays, engineers are using CSS also along with XPath because it is simple in writing. Earlier, only XPath was preferred, but because of its simplicity and it is faster, CSS is also preferred, right? So if you talk about the differences with XPath, then CSS is simple in text, in syntax as well as in uses, right? And it is faster. It is faster than XPath, right? The only drawback with CSS is it can traverse only in forward direction. Only in forward direction. So in XPath, we have seen that, right? With the help of context node, I can move to the preceding nodes also. I can move to the parent, grandparents also. But in CSS, we do not have that flexibility. It can move only in the forward direction. Okay, so that is the drawback of CSS. Now, talking about how can we use CSS. So the very first syntax of CSS is using ID. If we have any ID of element, then we can directly use with the help of hash symbol, or we can use with like this. So hash ID, hash ID, and the second syntax is HTML tag and then hash or ID. Okay, so these two are valid syntaxes for if we are looking to use CSS, just hash ID or HTML tag of that element and hash ID. If I go back to this, so let's say I am having an ID here, which is category. So if I use directly hash and then categories, my CSS is complete. Okay, so this is absolutely fine. CSS is absolutely fine. Instead of this, if I want little bit modification here or little bit extension here, I can use UL here because UL is a tag name here. So UL hash categories. So that is also fine. So using these two, I can locate the element using CSS selector. Okay, hash ID or HTML tag hash ID. Your second is using class name. So for class name, we have dot class name. So we use dot when we are looking to locate any element using class name. Then we have HTML tag and dot class name. Next one is, let's say if there are multiple classes there, class 1, class 2, class 3, then we can write like C1 dot C2 dot C3. Okay, and here also the dot will come. Or the other variation of this could be HTML tag and then dot C1 dot C2 dot C3. Okay, so these four are accepted syntaxes when we use class name. So let's say I am having any class here. So see, this is the class, parent is a class here, or this is the number is a class. So let me try identifying. So let me identify using class name. So dot parent. So it is giving me 71 nodes because there are other nodes also which are having the same CSS. So if I append this using class HTML tag, then also I'm getting 69 nodes, right? And first one is this. So let me find out something which is unique. So footer inner. Yeah, this using this dot footer inner, I can directly locate the element using this class name. So dot class name is absolutely fine. And if I want to use HTML tag along with this div dot class name. Okay, and in some scenarios you might see some multiple class names for a single web element, right? So therein, if we come across that, then we can use dot class name 1, dot class name 2, dot class name 3. Likewise, we can use. Let me see if I have anything here. Yeah, so here we have. So for this ID, I'm having this class, and can you observe this class is having 3 different values? Because after form control there is a space, after private form control there is again a space. So this is, though this attribute is only one, but there are 3 class names here. If I try to locate only with this form control, it will not be able, I will not be able to locate that. So dot form control, I am getting two attributes here, two elements here. If I use dot private form control, dot form control, 1 second. Yeah, so when I use multiple class names separated by dot, I can locate that particular element. And I can use the tag also, input dot form control. Getting it? Disha, Sudhara, Naresh?
Yes.
Yeah, so dot class name, HTML dot class name. If I'm having multiple class names, then dot, using dots and HTML dot. Now the next is, uh, we have discussed earlier also. So that's a simple syntax. Like I can write like tag name, then your here is your attribute, and then this is your value, attribute name and then value. So this is a bit different. Here I am not using any forward slashes, and here I'm not using any at the rate, right? So it's direct, right? So ID equal to any value, or likewise I can use. Okay, so this is with one attribute. And if I'm looking for more than one attribute, so tag name attribute 1 value 1, and then attribute 2 value 2, and then there is no and or between this, Disha. It's just we have to put that
Yes,
in curly braces.
in XPath we use.
Yeah, and likewise I can use multiple attributes here. Attribute 3 value 3. Likewise I can have multiple attributes here. So that will also give me a unique CSS. Okay, now we have something called contains in XPath. We have something called text in XPath, and we have something called starts with in XPath. And we have similar substitute in CSS also, for contains for text or for starts with, right? But herein we don't use any simple English. It's just we use some symbols to donate what as the CSS has in contains as in, right? So contains will start as in star, like it will use the star symbol or asterisk symbol, right? So contains will use the asterisk symbol in CSS. Text will use your this power symbol in CSS. Not text, 1 second. It starts with, sorry, there is no such text. It just starts with and then ends with. Sorry, my mistake. So this is will use power symbol, and then ends with will use dollar symbol in CSS. Okay, So how do I write that? So it's again simple. We will have to use this syntax for contains. Let's say I am looking for an attribute which contains, let's say, some specific value. So how will I use? I will start with tag name, then attribute, and then attribute. That attribute is containing some value. So I will use a star here. Okay, and let's say I am having some value which starts with something, some text or something, and for that also I will use the same formula. Instead of asterisk, I will use power symbol here. And if something is ending with some element is ending with some syntax, then I will use, instead of asterisk, I will use dollar symbol here. Okay, and rest all formula remains same. Okay, so if I go back to Eclipse, sorry, if I go back to this, yeah, so let's say I am trying to locate this username field using this, first was your contains, right? So let's say this username field, what it contains, let's say it contains name. I am looking for this field which contains name. So how will I write? So tag name is input, and then with input I am getting nothing, I am getting 12, and then attribute is id, then star equal to name, right? So it's just name I will have to use here. So star means this, the value of this is containing name. If I don't use name here, then it will fail, right? Because there is no matching node. But if I use a star here, it means this value should contain name here. Naresh, Disha, Sitara.
Yeah, Nitin. Can we use text method also, Nitin?
No, we cannot use text method. There is no such text method in CSS. So it is basically for contains. So this value should contain some value. It could be at the beginning of the value, it could be at the end of the value, it could be in the middle of the value, anywhere. Okay, so if I want to use a start with here, what changes I will have to do, Sitara, here?
Change the asterisk to power.
Power, and then
instead of name, it should be user.
It should be user. That's correct. Yeah, because user is starting. User is the starting text of that value, right?
Yeah.
Instead of that, if I want to use with and Disha, what change I will have to do here? Disha, can't hear you if you're speaking. Okay, not sure if Disha is there. Sitara, Naresh, can you tell me what change I will have to do? Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, I think she got dropped off. Okay. What change I have to do, Naresh? If I want to use ends with.
Yeah, I should make it as a dollar.
Dollar, right?
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yes.
Yeah. Dollar. So dollar, and then what text? Can I put user here?
No, name you can put.
Name I can put,
Ends
right?
with, right?
Yeah, ends with, right? So when I put name, my element is highlighted with yellow text, yellow color. Okay, so it means it is a valid locator, and I can see 1 of 1 here. Fair enough? Okay, so we are done with this ID, class, tag name, star, power, and then dollar symbol. Next is your, let Disha come.
Nitin, I'll drop at 12:25 or
We have discussed on ID, class, then simple customized simple CSS, then using these all symbols. Now next is pseudo type, CSS. So wherein I am looking for any nth child or nth element. Okay. So Disha, do you have any idea of what is like nth child in CSS?
No, I don't have it.
Okay, so
Actually, this advanced part I wanted to learn, so yeah.
okay, so that we call as pseudo classes. It's not of much use, but the name itself is not of much use, but we call them pseudo classes, and wherein we can check for first child, we can check for last child, we can check for nth child, and then nth last child. Okay, so so first child actually returns the first element from the group of sibling element. First element from the group of sibling element. Last child will return the last element from the group of sibling element. Nth child returns the element based on their position in the group of siblings. Returns elements, 1 second, based on the position in the group of the sibling. Position in a group of sibling. And nth last child returns element based on their position among the group of siblings counting from the end. This screen is coming always. Returns elements based on their position among the group of siblings counting from end. Okay, so in CSS, in XPath, how do we traverse from parent to child? We use this forward slash, right? Right, guys?
Yes.
We traverse from parent to child using forward slash, single forward slash only. But in case of in CSS, we use greater than symbol. So when we move from parent to child, we will use greater than symbol. So parent to child tag, likewise we will move. Okay, so that is again a important thing you should remember. We should always use greater than symbol. Right. So what is first child, last child, nth child? Let's say I am on this website, and this is my parent UL ID categories, and this parent is having so many child. Right. So how will I move to my first child? How will I move to the last child? How will I move to the specific child in this? So for that, we can use the pseudo classes from this CSS selector family. Okay, so first child will return me the first element from the group of sibling elements. So these are all siblings, right? So these are all siblings. This list 1, list 2, list 3. These allies, all allies are siblings only, and this UL is my parent. Okay, so how will I move? What formula should I use? Disha, remember? Do you know anything? So first I will use parent, right?
Yeah.
So parent, let's say I am having ID here. So ID, let's say this is my ID, and then hash ID is my categories. And then I will have to move to the child. Why ID categories is not coming anything?
Hash ID, I guess it should be right.
The ID is also, oh sorry, not ID, and it should be UL, right? My mistake, sorry. Hash. And then if I need to move to the child, then I will use this asterisk and then colon. And then I will have to move to first child. So I will directly write first child. So using this, I can move to the first child. If I do not have this first child, how will I move to first child? Disha, Sitara? I will write like li and then class equal to
The value.
The value.
the value, right? Yeah. So with this, I can move to the first child. But directly using this first child method of this pseudo class, I can directly move to first child. First child. Okay. So first child can be used here. And if I need to move to last child, what I will use? So let me write this syntax there. So if I need to move to last child, what I will use? I will use, instead of first child, I will use last child. Last child. So I can directly move to last child. Disha?
Yeah, understood. And in between, if we want then?
Yeah, I'm coming to
That is
that
nth
point.
child.
Nth child, yeah. So if I am first child and last child, I have covered. So in between, let's say if I am looking to locate to any element, how will I do that? For that, I will use nth child concept. Nth child, and then in bracket, I will give first or second or any position, right? So first will give me first, then fifth will give me fifth child, 10th will give me 10th child. Okay, so this is like nth child. Okay, nth return element based on the position in the group of siblings. And nth last child will give me, this is again like, it will start from last and then it will give me the element starting from last only. So nth child is counting the values from starting. However, nth last child will count the values from last. And then, so nth last child, 1 is giving me the last value. 2 will give me second last value. 3 will give me third last value. Likewise, you can start from last also. Okay, if I need to move further inside this, I can move to like this. So then let's say I want to move to there inside this also I am having something called this I want to move to this class. So how will I move? So right, as of now, I'm at last third and I want to move to this child. So how will I move, Disha?
And the last child 3, then colon,
Nth
nth
last child,
child.
what it is giving 2,
3.
2 is giving this. Nth last child 2 is giving this, right? So nth child 2 will give me this. Okay. Now I need to move further, right? Inside this. So again,
Nth
then nth child
and the child 1.
1, right? So likewise, I can write like I was at this, then I move to this, then I move to this. If I need to move further, then also I can move, right? There are so
Okay, so
many.
in nth child 2, we have two. One is A class parent, and then the second is UL class subcat.
Correct.
So since we wanted to move to UL class, we mentioned it as 2.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
I can directly write this instead of nth child. I can write last child also. Yeah. Sitara?
Yeah, understood.
So last child, and from last child I am moving to nth child.
Nth child.
Yeah, or here I can move to first child. Here I can write to first child also. Yeah, so we do have flexibility. First child, last child, nth child, nth last child. Likewise, we do have that flexibility. Can you practice this, guys?
Yeah, it needs practice only.
Yeah. Okay, so